Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Most people understand and accept the government's need to keep certain projects top secret for reasons of national security. But Sightings has spoken with former government personnel who charge that not only does the government keep certain projects secret, it also creates bogus projects to divert the prying eyes of the American public. It's called disinformation. What does the United States government and the military know about UFOs? And when did they know it? For nearly 50 years, researchers and private citizens have been asking for answers to no avail. Have we made contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence? Are we being kept from the truth through a systematic plan of disinformation?
Certainly there is a cover-up. That's not the important question. That's a given. The ability to maintain a cover-up is directly proportional to the magnitude of the secret that's being kept. If the secret is only that there are UFOs, that there are extraterrestrials coming here visiting the planet, then I submit to you that's not much of a secret. It has to be something so potentially shattering to the basic sociological structure of the planet that anybody privy to it takes one look at it and says, oh my God, we've got to keep the lid on this. How are we going to tell the public?
Charges of government conspiracy are nothing new. But what is new are revelations that not all secret government projects have been for the greater public good. As recently as the early 1970s, LSD was given to unwitting human subjects. In the 1940s, people received plutonium injections without their knowledge or consent. And during the Cold War, human guinea pigs were used to determine the effect of nuclear bombs dropped within close range. These experiments and hundreds of other secret military projects prove that the government is capable of large-scale deception. Clandestine operations in the name of national security came to public attention for the first time in the 1950s with the U-2 spy plane.
Just before it became operational in 1954, a plan was developed in which they said, how do you hide an airplane with a 60-foot wingspan? You don't.
Leo Janis worked in the Johnson White House before becoming a correspondent for Time magazine. In Skunk Works, Janis investigates the top-secret test center where the U-2 was developed.
So they made up a story. And the story was that this airplane was being developed to study high-altitude weather and so on and so forth, and put out an official news release, lying to the American people.
But keeping the wraps on a new generation of spy plane is a far cry from maintaining a massive UFO conspiracy. Skeptics charge that if our government does have evidence of alien craft or life forms, someone, somewhere, would leak it. That a secret this big just could not be kept.
Nonsense. Nonsense. You can do it. I'm convinced of that.
George Knapp is another investigative reporter who believes that the U.S. government consistently hides the truth from the public. He showed Sightings documents that outline government procedures for launching a disinformation campaign called cover stories.
Our government does it all the time. There are even printed guidelines for how cover stories, disinformation, are supposed to work. In April of 1994, there was even a review of the cover story policy by something called the Joint Security Commission, something hidden in the bowels of the Pentagon, and they said it in a very delicate way, we're doing this too much. We're doing it too much for the wrong reasons. It's too expensive. It's not getting the job done. But it recommended rewriting the guidelines for cover stories. In other words, let's revise the way we lie to the American public and the rest of the world.
Robert O. Dean is a retired Army Sergeant Major who served on the front lines in Korea and Vietnam and was later assigned to NATO's Supreme Headquarters Command. He claims to have had NATO's highest security clearance, which is called, strangely, a cosmic top-secret clearance. It was during his tenure at NATO that Dean claims he read a 12-inch thick intelligence report on UFOs.
I have to be honest with you and tell you that that information literally changed my life, because I knew for the first time that this subject was not fantasy, it wasn't myth, it wasn't legend, it was real, it was true.
But why is Dean breaking his silence now, nearly 30 years after reading that life-changing report?
One of the reasons I'm violating my national security oath is that I believe that the American people are losing their Constitution because of the secrecy and the cover-up. We've got people in positions of power that are making national policy that were never elected for this. They're not accountable, they're not responsible to either the executive or the legislative branch, and that's got to stop.
Dean and others charge that secret government enterprises called black projects are far more widespread and far more damaging than most people believe, and the best minds in the country are in charge of keeping them secret.
The people who engage in disinformation are a lot better at it than we are at figuring it out.
This document from the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence reveals that the agency was proposing a UFO disinformation plan as early as 1952. The document also details an investigation of Knapp, a private UFO watchdog group.
They spied on it, they infiltrated it, they became officers in it, and soon thereafter, the regular members who'd kept this thing going for a number of years lost interest.
Despite hundreds of pages of documentary evidence, the only officially recognized government investigation of UFOs is Project Blue Book.
Now, I look upon Blue Book itself as a little bit of disinformation, to tell the people, yes, we're doing something, when in reality, Blue Book, as we understood it, was simply a public relations front. And those of us who really dug into it know that Blue Book was a cover. It was a PR cover, that they didn't really address the reality of the issues. It was a PR attempt to show the public, well, we're doing some research. Yeah, we're really paying attention to it. But most of the real solid material never went to Blue Book. And Air Force pilots knew this.
And according to Dean, disinformation continues to this day.
To give you an example of the most recent example of absurd disinformation was this incident involving the Roswell incident. First, the Air Force says it was a weather balloon. And 50 years later, they said, gee, guys, we're sorry. It really wasn't a weather balloon. It was much more than that, but it was a balloon. Project Mogul. Well, I'm tempted to use terms that you'll have to bleep out. This is garbage. That's disinformation. That's lying through your teeth to the American people. And if that isn't disinformation, I don't know what is.
What Dean is referring to is this 23-page statement about the Roswell incident released by the Air Force in late 1994. In it, the Air Force attempted to link veteran researcher Stanton Friedman to ludicrous stories in the tabloid.
They said in 1978, an article appeared in a tabloid newspaper, the National Enquirer. The fact of the matter is, there wasn't an article in the Enquirer. So it's not only wrong information, it has a purpose to create a false picture of what was going on. After all, it's just tabloid nonsense.
Bob Dean believes that there have also been attempts to discredit his UFO investigations.
We're not merely dealing with probably the most important issue of our time, we're probably dealing with the most important issue in the history of the human race. This is something I believe in my heart, that the truth on this issue will literally set us free.
George Knapp is not so optimistic.
I don't see any way it's ever going to end. The nature of the information itself. I mean, we all say we have a right to know, we want to know, we're ready. I'm not sure we are ready. You know, some of the more outrageous aspects of alien visitation, UFOs, are downright scary. And we can say we're ready all we want, but I think when you get right down to it, it would have severe ramifications.
Sightings is in the midst of its own investigation into charges of a government UFO conspiracy. We have examined hundreds of documents, including this Air Force study that concludes that there is a possibility of alien visitors to our planet, or at least of alien-controlled UFOs. We'll bring you our full report on upcoming editions of Sightings.
Until next time, remember, no mystery is closed to an open mind. For Sightings, I'm Tim White.